Hi everyone. I want to show you a little technique for configuring pop-ups. What I want to show you how to do is to change the color of the font in your pop-up to match associated features on the map. So I'm doing this in ArcGIS Pro, but the same technique can work in ArcGIS Online and Portal for ArcGIS. So you see I have parcels here on my map, and they're color-coded by land use classification. So what I'd like is that if I click on a purple parcel, the text is highlighted in purple. Click on a pink parcel, it's highlighted in pink. Now, I could have just changed the color of the font, but in this case, I chose to change the color of the background. But you can do either using this technique. So let me show you how it works. I'm going to jump over here to another map that does not have the pop-up configured yet, and I'm going to configure it. Before we do, I need to find out what these colors actually are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out to the symbology pane, and I'm going to check the color properties for each one of these colors and grab their little hex code. That hex code is going to allow me to exactly match the highlight color or the background color of that text to the parcel. So step one is go find out the hex codes of each of the colors for your unique classes. So I've already done that, okay? So then I need to configure pop-up. So when I configure the pop-up, what I'm actually going to do is add a text box. I've already got it here. Let me remove it so you can see how I added it. I added a text element in addition to all my fields. I'm just going to take the fields and drag them down below this text so the text will show up at the top of the list. And I'm going to configure that text. And what I want to put in this text is, let's say, the deed owner, the owner name of the land, and then a colon, and then maybe the value of the land. So I'm grabbing the field tokens up here. These guys are going to point back to the actual value in the field. So I want the deed owner, and let's say I'll get the current total value. And I'm just going to highlight that whole bit of text, and I'm going to color it some color. So again, I can color the font here, or if I want to change the background, I'll go over here and change the background. Now I know it's all red right now, but we're going to fix that in a second. So first, add the fields in here as tokens. Add whatever literal text you want. For example, I'm going to put a $sign in here too. Let me change that to a different color so it's a little easier for you guys to see. Let me just make it a yellow. So I have the literal colon and a literal $sign. Otherwise, it's just the two columns. Okay, so that's good. If I click on anything now, I get the yellow color background. So my job now is to change that yellow and make it dynamic. And so I can do that. Let me go back to configuring my pop-up. How I'm going to do that is I'm actually going to write a little bit of arcade code that figures out what color I need to use based on the land use classification. So I'll add a little expression. Right now I have 49 fields in my table, right? I'm going to add an expression that's going to give me almost like a 50th field, right? It's a little pseudo field. I'll call this field color choice, for example. Notice its actual name is expression 0. That's going to be important in just a minute, okay? So this is my little arcade expression. And my expression, I'm just going to paste it in here so that you don't have to watch me type it and make typos, but I want to explain it to you, okay? So this is the little arcade expression. Now, this is not creating something that's going to display in the pop-up. This is just figuring out a color code, a hex code for me that I can later use, all right? So first, I've created a variable called class description, and I've set it equal to the domain value of $feature. $feature is the profile variable in Arcade that points to whichever feature you just identified. Okay, so $feature is whichever polygon I just clicked on. And I'm asking for the domain value because this data has domains on it. So rather than getting the code, I want the actual word, the actual domain description. And class is the name of my domain. So now I've said decode. So that's the little arcade conditional statement. It's decode on the class description, that variable that I just created. So if the first land use class that I found was agriculture, then you're saying decode agriculture. And decode works like this. You put the variable in there you want to check, and then you put all the possible matches. If it finds agriculture, what should it return? If it finds commercial, what should it return? So this is a bunch of like key value pairs really, but it's the code you're comparing it against. And if that variable equals that value, what should be returned? Okay, so if it's agricultural, return this hex code. If it's commercial, this hex code. Educational, industrial, residential. And then if, in the case that class description doesn't match any of my preferred choices, return this value, which is the catch-all for all other land use classifications. And I've just set that to that dark gray color there. So this is the magic that's going to change those colors, right? It's that I created this little pseudo field, this little arcade expression that figures out what color code we should use. Now, it's not finished yet. I'm not finished. It's not going to do the job yet. I'm going to say okay here. Remember my expression 0 here, okay? So I'm going to say okay. And I'm going to go back. And now if I look at my field, see I have 50 fields. And if I edit, that last field is color choice. I don't want to display it. I'm not going to display it in my pop-up, but I want it out here so that I can make use of it. So how I make use of it is over here when I'm configuring this text block, me go in here and I'm going to have that color change based on that hex code. So the way I do that is I just go up here and push this slider over to HTML mode so I can see the code it's actually being used to write that text. So there's my deed owner, my current total value, but here's the color choice, see? Now what I want to put in here is the return value from that expression that I just created. Let's go back and look at it one more time. If I go back here and I go to my expressions and I edit my expression, you see the returned value is that hex code. And it's this class description, but it's going to be returned into this expression. So let me go back over here again, and I'll edit this text. And so instead of this hex code for the background color, I'm going to replace it with that field I just added, that color choice. And that puts the actual name. Unfortunately, it doesn't call it color choice. It puts the actual expression name, but that's all it takes. Replace that hex code with this expression. Now when I back up, I'm done. And so now I get the purple color or the pink color. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so just as a reminder, go to the color properties for each color in order to grab the hex code and write those down or put them in a file. And then go to configure pop-ups and add your expression. And your expression just needs to be some arcade code that uses some kind of a conditional statement. If it's this code, return this hex code. I used a decode. And once you've created that little pseudo column, then you can use it in configuring your text. The trick is just to squish it over to HTML mode and change whatever hex code is in there to your little expression. I hope you find that useful. Thanks for listening. If you want to know more about Arcade, check out the Teach Me GIS Arcade class. Hope to see you in class soon.